Cyamids. Whale lice sound almost harmless by name, like something small and forgettable clinging to the side of a whale. But cyamids are crustaceans, distant relatives of crabs and shrimp, and they spend their entire lives attached to a single host, never leaving, never migrating, born and dying on the same body. They hook themselves into skin folds, open wounds, and the tissue around a whale's eyes and genitals using curved, gripping legs built specifically for clinging to moving flesh. They feed on dead skin and damaged tissue. But here's the problem. They don't wait for wounds to appear. They make them worse on purpose, keeping sores open so feeding can continue. A single whale can carry several thousand individuals at once, clustered in pale, cream-colored masses across dark skin. They transfer from mother to calf at birth, meaning the very first physical contact a newborn whale has with the world includes inheriting a colony of parasites. They don't hijack the nervous system or rewire behavior directly, but chronic infestation causes enough pain and distraction that infected whales alter their swimming patterns and social behavior. Different species of cyamids are host-specific, meaning gray whale lice only survive on gray whales. They are so intertwined with their hosts that scientists use lice DNA to trace whale migration and population history. They are not the most dramatic parasite on this list, but they are a permanent, inescapable fixture of life for some of the largest animals on Earth. Anisakis. Anisakis larvae look unremarkable at first. Tiny, translucent white coils curled inside the muscle tissue of fish and squid, sitting still, waiting. They can't complete their life cycle in a fish. The fish is just a vehicle. What they are waiting for is to be eaten by a marine mammal, a seal or a whale, where they can finally migrate to the stomach lining, mature, and reproduce. The fish, in the meantime, has no idea it is functioning as a living delivery capsule. The larvae are 2 to 3 centimeters long and infect over 200 fish species across the world's oceans. When a human eats infected raw or undercooked fish, the larvae attempt to burrow into the stomach or intestinal wall anyway. They have no idea they are in the wrong host. They simply do what they are programmed to do, drilling into tissue, triggering intense abdominal pain, nausea, and in some cases severe allergic reactions, requiring surgery to remove them. The fish itself experiences something subtler. The larvae chemically suppress parts of the immune response to avoid being destroyed, essentially editing the fish's biology to extend their own survival. Anisakis is one of the most common parasites found in wild-caught fish globally, and has become more widely detected as demand for raw fish dishes has risen. The fish doesn't change how it swims or where it goes. It just carries the larva forward unknowingly until something eats it. Trematode flatworms. Some parasites don't bother controlling the brain. They just take away the tools the host needs to survive and let nature do the rest. Diplostomum and related trematode flatworms target the eyes of fish with surgical specificity. The larvae, released from infected freshwater and coastal snails, penetrate fish skin and migrate directly to the lens of the eye, where they insist and grow. Over time, the lens clouds over. The fish goes partially or completely blind. From the parasite's perspective, this is not cruelty, it's logistics. Blind fish lose the ability to detect predators at normal distances, so they drift closer to the water's surface and swim in erratic, exposed patterns. Studies in infected trout and perch populations suggest predation rates in heavily parasitized fish can increase dramatically compared to healthy individuals, though exact figures vary by study and environment. A bird spots the disoriented fish near the surface, dives, and swallows it. The trematode then matures in the bird's digestive tract, reproduces, and releases eggs back into the water through the bird's droppings, where snails pick them up and restart the cycle. The fish never had a chance to fight back. It was blinded quietly from the inside and then made into an easy target. The parasite never needed to touch the nervous system. It just needed to break the window. Saculina. Saculina begins its life as something so small it is nearly invisible. A free-swimming larva drifting through the open ocean, looking for a crab. When it finds one, it crawls across the shell until it locates a soft joint, then injects itself as a tiny cluster of undifferentiated cells, essentially dissolving into the crab's body and rebuilding itself from the inside. Over the following weeks, it grows root-like tendrils called the interna that spread through the crab's entire body, wrapping around organs, threading into muscle, pushing into the eye stalks, reaching into every available space. The visible part, called the externa, eventually bulges out from beneath the crab's abdomen like a pale, rounded tumor. This is not a tumor. It is the parasite's reproductive organ. From this point, the crab stops molting, stops growing, and completely stops its own reproduction. Male crabs are chemically reprogrammed. Their bodies begin behaving like females, and they tend to the parasite's egg mass as though it were their own clutch of offspring, fanning it, protecting it, going through every instinctive motion of crab parenthood for the benefit of something that has hollowed them out entirely. In some populations, infection rates exceed 50%. The crab is alive throughout all of it, moving, feeding, functioning, just no longer for itself. Gnathia. Gnathiid isopods look like tiny armored insects. In the juvenile stage, called Praniza larvae, they are dedicated blood feeders that have shaped the behavior of reef fish across entire ocean ecosystems. A Praniza larva finds a fish, forces its way through the scales near the gills or fins, and begins drinking blood until it swells to roughly 3 times its original size, becoming a dark, distended blob, barely recognizable as the creature it started as. Then it drops off, digests the meal, molts, and returns for another feeding round. This happens up to 3 times before it reaches adulthood. Heavy infestations cause severe anemia and immune suppression in host fish, and gnathiids are also implicated in transmitting blood-borne pathogens between hosts. But the most significant behavioral impact is indirect. Fish carrying large gnathiid loads actively alter their movement patterns to seek out cleaning stations. Specific locations on the reef where cleaner wrasses remove parasites. Infected fish will abandon normal territory routes and travel specifically toward these stations, meaning the parasite is, in a functional sense, redirecting the fish's daily geography. The fish isn't being mind-controlled, but its decisions are being dictated by discomfort and the need for relief. In reefs with high gnathiid populations, this creates a kind of invisible, parasite-driven traffic, fish flowing toward cleaning stations in patterns shaped entirely by something feeding on them. Cymothoa exigua. Cymothoa exigua enters a fish as a juvenile through the gills, finds the base of the tongue, and clamps down on the blood vessels supplying it. The tongue, starved of circulation, atrophies and eventually falls away. The isopod then hooks its own legs into the remaining stub and takes up permanent residence in the fish's mouth, functioning as a replacement tongue for the rest of the fish's life. This is the only known parasite anywhere on Earth that fully replaces a host organ with its own body. The fish continues eating, and with every meal, the isopod feeds on blood and mucus drawn directly from the action of the fish's own jaw. Females reach around 3 centimeters in length and are large enough to be clearly visible when the fish opens its mouth, a pale, gray, segmented creature gripping the inside of the face with its legs. Males are smaller and often live in the gills nearby. The parasite has been documented in at least dozens of fish species across the Atlantic and Pacific, including commercially caught snapper, and fishermen and fish market workers have encountered them without realizing what they were looking at. The fish does not appear to suffer dramatically impaired feeding, which in some ways makes it stranger. Life continues. The fish eats. The isopod eats. The fish just has something living inside its face that used to be part of itself. Leucochloridium paradoxum. Leucochloridium paradoxum, commonly called the broodsack worm, is one of the few parasites that exercises something close to direct behavioral control over its host, and it does it with what looks like a biological puppet show. The flatworm larvae invade the eye stalks of amber snails and develop into pulsating, brightly striped brood sacs, banded in greens, browns, and yellows, that visually mimic a caterpillar or grub dangling from a branch. The brood sac pulses rhythmically. Reports suggest at a rate near 70 times per minute, creating the illusion of a living, wriggling insect. But the visual mimicry alone is not enough. The parasite also forces the snail to behave in ways it would never naturally choose, moving into open, brightly lit areas during daylight hours when snails typically shelter to avoid predators and desiccation. The infected eye stalk cannot retract. It stays extended, throbbing, fully visible. A bird sees what appears to be a grub waving in the light, pecks off the eye stalk, and swallows it. The worm matures in the bird's digestive system, releases eggs through droppings, and the cycle restarts when a snail ingests the contaminated material. The snail remarkably survives the loss of the eye stalk and regrows it, only to potentially be reinfected and used again. The parasite is not just exploiting the host's body, it is rewriting the host's behavior, turning a cautious, shade-seeking animal into a brightly lit advertisement for something that will get it eaten. Symathoa and parasitic isopods of deep-sea fish. The relatives of the famous giant isopod Bathynomus giganteus include a range of parasitic species in families like Aegidae and Cirrolanidae that attack fish in coastal and deep-sea environments. And they represent what happens when the isopod body plan is fully committed to feeding on something still alive. Unlike Symathoa, which replaces a single organ and settles in, these isopods attach externally to the face, jaw, around the eyes, and near the brain case, feeding aggressively enough to cause partial blindness, jaw dysfunction, and in heavy infestations, a level of physical drain that leaves the fish too weakened to hunt effectively. Some species in this group can reach 20 centimeters or more in length. Fishermen hauling deep-sea catch regularly pull up fish with large isopods still attached and actively feeding. The fish alive but motionless, unable to dislodge something that has locked itself to the most sensitive and vulnerable part of its body. The fish continues swimming in the depths, being slowly emptied, navigating by instinct with an increasingly compromised body. In some deep-sea ecosystems, infection rates within certain fish species are reported to be extremely high, suggesting these parasites are not rare aberrations, but consistent structural features of the food web. The fish lives, the isopod feeds, and somewhere in the dark, a few hundred meters down, that arrangement continues indefinitely. Two animals locked together, one of them just not benefiting at all.